Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the 435 podcast. I'm your host, Robert McFarland. Over the next several episodes, guys, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the 2025 municipal elections. Mayors and city council members from all over Southern Utah are going to be seeking your vote in helping shape the future of our cities. So this is the place that you're going to be able to get one-on-one conversations with all the candidates to help you make the best decision for you come election season. So please make sure you like and subscribe, share it with other voters throughout Washington County, and make sure they have the information they need to make the decisions that are going to be best for us in the county. We hope you enjoy this episode and this series of episodes, guys. We'll see you out there.
From the Blue Form Media Studios, this is the 435 podcast, the pulse of Southern Utah.
Dave, Imlay, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Are we rolling?
Yes.
We are rolling.
All right, good deal.
Cool. I wanted to make sure. So you're running for Hurricane City Council?
Yes, that's correct.
Not mayor?
Not mayor, no way.
Not mayor. There's plenty of those in the race right now. That race seems to be heating up a little bit.
There's a lot of controversy going on in that race, and I'm trying to stay out of that as much as possible.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to watch. You know, you never know how elections are going to go, but some of them catch a little bit more attention than others. But there's quite a bit of little controversy on the mayor's side of things.
You bet.
But really, when the rubber meets the road, the city councils, the mayor seats, they don't carry a whole lot of power. As far as like the city, they set the agenda, but for the most part, like the tough stuff is done at the city council level. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. So as one city council member, you don't have a lot of power.
Yeah.
But as a group, you do have a lot of power.
Yeah.
Also, just not with the state or with the city, but also with the state as you move up the state for with your representative and stuff. The municipals have a lot of power.
Yeah,
the state. So,
they do. They have. There's a lot of attention that you can get by being in that city council seat, and that voice can go a long way. And then as a group, when you have a good group, city council group together, and there's a collective message that everybody's kind of on the same page, pushing towards specific goals together. There a lot of progress can be done, and progress not necessarily in like progressive, like the terminology progressive, right, but it's being able to move things forward in a positive way.
Correct.
When you have a good group together. So what do you think about just maybe let's take a step back. Tell us who you are, what you've done, how'd you get to Hurricane, kind of the background for people that might not know you.
Okay. I was born and raised here in St. George a lot of years ago. Dixie was the only high school at the time, and it was just barely a 3A school at that point. Great place to grow up as a young man. The hills were open. The world was our adventure. So ended up going to Utah Technical College. That was in Provo, Orem. Mm-hmm. It's not the Utah Tech that we have here. It's the real Utah Tech.
Yeah.
And went through a lineman training course there, 2-year course. Worked for Hurricane City for 2 or 3 months as a cooperative training. They would not put me on permanently at that time, so I headed out to California, spent 7 years with PG&E. Worked PG&E as a lineman, power line worker. Yeah. And then moved back to Hurricane when they had a job opening 7 years later. And I've been there ever since. I worked with Hurricane City for 29 and a half years. Wow. And retired 4 years ago. And people have asked me, are you going to run for city council? And I've considered it back and forth a little bit because the city hired me. They took a chance on me once, hired me. Took a chance on me again, made me power director after 12 years working with Hurricane City. So the last 17 years, I was power director of Hurricane City Power. Mm-hmm. And I've always been appreciative of that. They afforded me a good income for my family. So I always figured I could give back. But then one day, I decided to go to a city council meeting. It was the day before the deadline of putting in for city council. Had not really an idea I was going to put in for city council candidacy. This year is the Hurricane's 50th year as being a municipal power company. And because there's been upheaval in the power department, nobody really knows about that. They got their hands full. So I figured I'd go put my name in for a 3-minute address the city council on whatever you want. You can do that before the city council starts if you get your name in before. And so I addressed the city council for 3 minutes and gave them a real quick history of the Hurricane City Power and told them it's a 50-year anniversary. It's a big deal. I sat down, went home, talked to my wife, and she said, "You need to run for city council." And I figured, okay, I have the history, I know a lot about the city. I've actually worked with the city councils for years, been to most of the city council meetings, worked with them directly with power issues. And I figured, okay, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot, especially when I saw there was an open seat.
Yeah.
So there's one incumbent that is not running. I figured, okay, it's not like I'm challenging anybody. I'm going to go for that open seat. And I figured, okay, now's the time.
Yeah.
Time for me to give back.
Yeah. I like that. It makes a lot of sense. What about what are you seeing in the power side of things that made you get up and speak? Just because it was the anniversary, or are you seeing challenges with the infrastructure that's happening or how it's being managed? What kind of was that 3 minutes? What was kind of the general?
So the general idea was just to give them a history of where we started and where we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the growth has been incredible, and we worked through major growth issues. And so that was my whole idea. Just a 3 minute. I mean, I ran out of time.
Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of had to finish up in a hurry there at the end. And that was the whole reason for doing that. But yes, there are a lot of issues going on in the power industry. It's changing drastically right now.
Yeah.
So costs are increasing. Trump's energy policies are going to help out with the power industry quite a bit right now. But it's still going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I think the analysis was we're basically going to 3 times the need for power over the next 5 to 10 years because of the data centers and because of the usage, the power usage. It was a combination of shutting down legacy power institutions like coal, natural gas, things like that. There was a big push through Obama and then again in Biden to start closing down carbon emitting, power
Correct.
plants. But that was our base load. And by shutting those down, but not having anything to come back online, it's been, it's like we're digging ourselves out of a hole on top of it. So you think some of the policies that Trump's put into play so far we are moving in the right direction?
Yes, I think so. I think some of the power plants that were scheduled to come offline, some of the coal power plants have went ahead and let's let them run for a little while longer.
Anyway, especially here in Utah, right?
Yeah. Well, we until we get the nuclear power up and running, which it's going to come. It's getting close. To tell you the truth, the small modular reactors are getting really close to being able to come commercial.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting thing. I know this is off topic, but just because the small modular, one of the policies Trump's putting into play is that if you're going to build a factory, you can build your own power and energy source and not be plugged into the grid, where historically you had to be plugged into the grid. You couldn't create your own independent power source, at least from what I understand. I might have that wrong. But do you think a lot of those SMRs, or the small modular reactors, do you think those are going to just be offline and private and not necessarily open to the public, sphere? Or what do you think? Do you think it's going to go into
it's a long ways off, but things move so fast now. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Just getting them online commercially is the struggle right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Hurricane, Washington City, many cities in Utah were trying to get a small modular reactor power plant on the Idaho National Laboratory up and running. It's just there were not enough subscription to make it run, it go. So we were right in the middle of that. Hurricane and Washington City were both like the biggest participants in that project if we could have got that thing online. So,
and so is it just in delay, or have they scrapped it totally?
Yeah,
or?
it's pretty much scrapped because there was not enough participation for the project. And Hurricane and Washington are not big enough to carry that weight. Yeah. And there are other cities in that too. Quite a few cities in Utah that were in that. So
how much, do you think, if combined collectively, Washington County, if all the cities came together, do you think they could put something online that would be like somewhere local, whether it's in Idaho or whatever, but be for just Washington County type power? Do you think that's even possible, or is it still too expensive?
It's possible. There could be one that could handle the loads here in Washington County, but then you have all these other resources that you already have. What are you going to do with those?
Yeah. Yeah. It's you just drive down the price of energy, and then everybody has cheap energy. It's like a tax break.
Well, the cost of the nuclear power is pretty expensive still.
Yeah. Oh,
So it would be the highest priced power that Hurricane would have.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk more about your role at the city council
I don't
levels.
know. I'd like to geek out on power issues.
I know.
all day long, so.
I could too. We'll do that on a different podcast.
Okay.
We'll do that on the next one. What do you think? As you're running, what is the proper role of government in the city management? Right. Where do you feel like the proper role is at the city level, at the state level, and federal level? What's your perspective on what's the job of that elected office?
Well, I think the biggest job is to have the finger on the public.
Mm-hmm.
So people can come to talk to you. If there's problems out there as a city council person, you may not know all the individual problems. The people out there just complaining about issues and they're not coming to the city council. City council can deal with them or not deal with them depending on how bad the issues are, but they don't know unless they know.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't do anything unless they know. So first of all, finding out what the issues are and then coming up with a solution to the problem. And then making ordinances, or maybe in some cases getting rid of ordinances that are no longer effective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a way to manage the city.
Yeah.
Issues. There's got to be a governing force to make those decisions one way or the other. And of course, zonings and approvals of developments and whatnot too. Somebody's got to, have the finger on that. So
yeah. Do you feel like there's in what situations do you feel like the government inserts themselves where they probably shouldn't? Where do you think there's that line that's drawn? It's like, hey, I have a problem. My neighbor is camping, in his yard, right? The city can pass ordinances, but where do you think that governmental role of solving the problem is drawn? Where do you draw that line? Does that make sense?
That's a tough line to draw. I dealt with that as a power director. We'd have problems with the power issues, and the guys that come to me is, are we willing to throw those people in jail for doing that issue? Yeah. And that's where the line is. Well, people have private property. They should be able to do certain things. If you make ordinances, you have to enforce them. You start fining them and they don't pay the fine. Then what do you do?
Right.
I mean, you hope that people are good people and follow rules. Mm-hmm. And especially if you let them know, hey, you're breaking the rules, here's a fine. Okay. You're hoping that will incentivize people to follow the rules. But in the end, are you willing to throw your citizens in jail? And so that's where you got to be careful when you make ordinances, not to make them over aggressive. Yeah. You want to make sure that citizens are taken care of, but people still follow the rules. So, yeah. There's always a line there.
There is a line there. Do you feel like let me ask this one. Okay. How do you define leadership in the context of public service, and what personal experiences help you shape your understanding of leading in that public sphere?
Okay, I lean a lot on my power industry as a power director. A lot of issues come up. You find a solution and you go forward fast with it. Mm-hmm. Also, as a leader, when somebody comes to you with a problem, a lot of times they're living the problem. And so a lot of times they have the solution. They come to you with the problem without a solution. I always told my guys, bring a solution to me, because you guys are living it. I can't just pull it out of the air. Yeah. And so as a leader, you listen to the people, listen to their solutions, and do as much as you can to follow their recommendations. Yeah. So as a public servant, do you feel like, running within the city, you have these specific individuals that you're leading. In this context, you're leading a little bit of the city staff at some capacity. Obviously, the mayor is going to be the executive with the city staff, but you have some role in that leadership, and then you have the leadership within the citizens, the individual citizens. Okay. Do you see a difference in the style of leadership between those two things? Yes, I do. Because when it comes to employees, you got to be really careful on how you deal with employees. Mm-hmm. So as a city councilman, you don't often deal with employees individually. You deal with them more through a budgetary wages, benefits, whatnot, when the budgets come around. So you do deal with them differently, because it's the way as a city council, you are a representative of the citizens, not so much as the employees. But that's one of my pet peeves with one of the things I'm running on is an advocate for the employees. Yeah. I feel like the employees really need to have somebody in there looking out after their their interests. I mean, I could go way deep into that. I mean, work is something everybody has to go to every morning, and they should be looking forward to it, not dreading it.
Yeah.
And that starts from the bottom, but the lowest pole on the totem pole, all the way up the top, making it a great place to work. It's just not from the top down. And so that's, if I have the ability, I'm going to be working on that aspect of it.
Yeah. I have heard I've heard both sides of the story. So this isn't, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I have heard there is a little bit of discontent within the city management in the office, that there's some feelings that things aren't being run really well within the city itself. And then on the other side, I've heard things are great and that they're clicking on all cylinders. Well, maybe from your perspective, what are you hearing from the city is how that's being operated? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It depends on what department you're talking about. And I really don't want to get into the weeds with each department.
Yeah.
But there are some departments that are struggling. I know with the power department, after 3.5 years, my replacement when I retired now works for City of Washington. And that is an odd thing to have happen.
Yeah.
So I know there's some issues going on there, and there's some other departments that are struggling in similar ways. Yeah. And I don't know all the ins and outs, but I'd like to help in that situation if I could.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that leadership requires absolute consistency, unwavering resolve in the decision making, or is flexibility and pragmatism more important in how you deal with that stuff?
That's really an interesting question, because once again, I'm going to go back to as a power department guy. I had a guy who was just underneath me, and we were dealing with a very difficult issues, which we do all the time. And I went ahead and made a decision. He said, well, that's not the same way you went last time. And he said, well, if you don't like my inconsistencies, use your own, because there are gray areas. I mean, the black and whites are easy. Yeah. But a lot of times there's those gray areas, and sometimes you're on one side of the gray and one side on the other side of the gray. It's hard to be 100% consistent. And you just have to look at all the information on all sides and make that decision. Yeah. And that's what I've been to a lot of city council meetings, and they'll make decisions, bang, bang, bang. Then all of a sudden they'll spend an hour and a half on one of those gray issues. Yeah. It's difficult.
That's difficult.
You have to fall on one side or the other. And it's a difficult.
Well, in those situations, how do you weigh, especially with in making those decisions, how do you weigh public input versus maybe the expertise that you're getting, as a city council member, or your own experience? How do you weigh that public input, and how are you going to approach that at the city council level, where it's like, maybe the right decision is not the popular decision? How do you plan to kind of navigate that?
That's a good question. So I will always tend to weigh the public's input a little heavier than maybe I should. Just depends on how it affects them individually. If somebody who lives a mile away does not like something that we're going to make a decision on it, that won't weigh as heavily. But the people who are, let's say, like a zone change, if it's a radical zone change against a different zoning, I will weigh that public input extremely heavily. Maybe if somebody just from outside doesn't like to see it for some reason, I may not weigh that quite as heavily. And of course, the city staff, you mentioned the city staff, they have expertise, and I will lean heavily on their expertise on these issues too. So is it the right thing to do for infrastructure and for the city as a whole compared to what these citizens? I mean, if these citizens are screaming hard about it and it's legitimate, then I'm definitely going to weigh heavy on those guys.
Yeah. And it's tough too, because, those zone changes, sometimes they fit within the general plan, but they're not fully implemented in the zone plan, because there's the two different layers. There's the general plan, and then you have the specific zoning and land use plans. And so they could get contentious, because the general plan might say, hey, we might have scheduled out whether it's medium density residential, whether it's, townhomes, or it might be a commercial building or something like that. But they don't like the specific type of commercial building that's going in there versus, okay, but that's what we need there as a city. That's what the long-term plan is for the city. And you live right next to it, and that's unfortunate, but we got to commit to this long-term vision of the city. It can be a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, those are the decisions the city councils dread.
Yeah.
Because they're always going to make people mad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people, if you sincerely take in their considerations, I think most people will be okay.
Yeah.
Maybe if the building's a little bit too tall, maybe have the building a little smaller, or look at their some way to soften those issues some.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
So how do you, if you had to choose, so if you had to pick, which you might not have to pick all the time, but if you had to pick between preserving cultural heritage and fostering innovation into the city, which do you prioritize, and why would you do that?
I think you should be able to do both. The cultural heritage will trickle away eventually, and unless I just don't see how it can stay forever. I look at St. George. When I grew up, downtown middle St. George, the cultural heritage is gone.
Yeah,
I mean and it will eventually go away. So,
how would you define that older cultural heritage?
Well, I used to ride down on my bike and get milk from Boots Cox Dairy. Right now it's Cox Subdivision. And those things would just slowly go away. I mean, there's the fields we'd take our shotguns to high school and put them in our truck and then go pheasant hunting after high school. I mean, that stuff just eventually just kind of trickles away. You just can't keep the fields south of Dixie High School anymore. People have private property and they need to be able to develop it if it's beneficial for them. So, you hate to see it go all at once, but but you also need the innovation. You need to have good jobs coming in. So you try to maybe keep the innovation in industrial parks and areas where the cultural history is not so prevalent.
Yeah, you bring this. This is an interesting topic because I've been thinking about this a lot too. Is when you think of cultural heritage, a lot of times we can define it as a way of life. It's like, how do we live? Like, how do we spend our day-to-days? And, a lot of times that's accelerated outside of even what's happening on the city, right? So it's like the internet comes in and kids they don't play outside as much. They want to play video games. And, we went on this long trip. We went on a 2-week camping trip up to Glacier National Park and down. And my boys, we let them get on their tablets when we were in the long car rides. We went 3,000 miles, so we were in the car quite a bit. But we tried to, control not having just a tablet in front of them the whole time, right? And so trying to play games inside the car and have them read and listen to books and mix it up. But once we got to those locations, there was no asking for TVs or wanting the tablet. We were able to get out and go do things. So this lifestyle, is imposed on us. And as soon as we got home, it's like, can we turn on the TV? Can we play video games? Like, that's what they want to do. And so when we think of looking forward into Hurricane and what's the lifestyle of a still a small town, what is the innovation? What do you see for Hurricane in its growth? Do you see tourism continuing to be a big cornerstone? Because if you look back, in basically the 90s, you look at the golf course, the creation of the golf course and creating this tourism economy. Do you see that tourism economy being a focus? And would you like to see, is that kind of how we want to continue to build out the future of the local economy? Or do you see it going a different direction? That was a long way around, but do you see where I'm headed and what I'm trying to? Yeah,
personally, I think that we've topped out on the tourism. I just don't know how much more we can support. I was actually watching something today that tourism in the United States, people coming from out of country into country, has dropped like 9%. And I've noticed that the tourists coming through Hurricane, stopping at the convenience stores, there used to be always 2 or 3 little van buses full of tourists, and I don't see that very often anymore. So I think we may have topped that out, but it will continue being that close to Zion and all the events that happen in our area. I mean, it's going to continue to grow slightly, I think. But I think with all the manufacturing moving from overseas to United States, I think we're going to see an upswing in manufacturing and technology.
Yeah. Do you see that there's a place for that? Do you see, if you were to look at and having a role in crafting how a hurricane develops and incentivizing different ways, do you see there's a role at the city level to try and foster that and to grow that?
Yeah, we actually need to get more industrial space in Hurricane. Definitely so. We have a lot of open ground in Hurricane. I think we need to get some industrial parks growing. I think they'd fill up pretty quickly now. So
where would you put it?
We're about out of land on the north end because we butt up against the turtle habitat, the desert tortoise habitat. So down the south end of town, they're along SR7. It'd be a beautiful place for industrial.
Yeah, I think of, what does industrial look like in the next century versus what industrial looked like, from basically the 50s to the 2000s, right? And I think a lot of people think factories and these ugly looking buildings and things like that. But I look down and I think you could have an industrial park with good design. You could have small modular industrial parks, within the city and integrate it within the community. That way there's not this, we have jobs out here, but living's here. So you have this traffic problem. Do you see that there could be a mix of that within the city?
Definitely.
Since you have so much land that's kind of undeveloped, do you see that being a possibility?
Definitely. With all our land, we should be able to cover all those issues. And like you say, industry, it's more manufacturing.
Yeah.
So I know
it's gonna be a lot of automated manufacturing too. Yeah.
I work part-time for a utility pole manufacturer in St. George.
Mm-hmm.
They're perfectly clean. That plant is spotless clean.
Yeah.
So it's not dirty. I mean, manufacturing can be very clean.
Yeah. So along those lines, what is the role of economic growth in a community's well-being, and how does it compare to other priorities like the quality of life and cultural preservation and things like that? How do you view that economic driver as a priority?
Well, the economic growth is extremely important for jobs. I mean, we have people moving in, we have families need jobs. The economic growth, I mean, if it stops, basically our cities start drying up. Mm-hmm. We need to have that growth continual. And there are some great benefits to growth because of that. People, more restaurants move in. If we have a good workforce, I know companies look at that before they move in. What is the workforce like? So we do need to have the economic growth. The cultural is going to stay. I mean, we have peach days, and I think that's going to stay forever.
You brought me peaches, man. I appreciate you bringing me peaches. That's awesome.
Yeah, I had to hurry up and get my peaches off the tree this morning, so they're getting overripe. So
they look perfect.
Yeah. So it's important. I mean, if we don't have economic growth, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. So do you think in that economic growth, because there's a few cities that are proposing, even St. George proposed doing a property tax increase, because when they're looking at the budget and you look at infrastructure and roads and fire and police, and I know Hurricane's fire situation is a little bit different, but when you look at these, these programs that are really essential for cities to develop, there's really, in my mind, there's two ways to go about it. You can raise property taxes, you can have property tax increases to help pay for a lot of those services, or you can incentivize businesses to come in to the area, and through sales tax and other types of taxes, you can use that to help fund that infrastructure need. Do you think there's what does that balance look like? Are you in favor of saying, okay, maybe we don't necessarily need as many businesses, and maybe we just have property taxes a little bit higher to do that, so we kind of stay a neighborhood type town? Or do you see kind of this idea that we keep businesses going and we keep property taxes low?
I would be more for keep the property tax low and incentivize businesses. But when you incentivize a business to come in, a lot of times that means giving them tax relief, impact fee relief, whatever, and that comes at a cost too. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of businesses that have come into Hurricane without any incentive. So you want to make sure you don't treat new businesses differently than you did the old businesses. You want to make sure that it is an extremely great benefit. So some of these businesses come in, they provide a large sales tax base for us, and those are the ones we really want to incentivize coming in.
Yeah, I think Lighthouse is out in Hurricane,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes,
So there are these other businesses, and so when you think of those incentives, do they have? They don't necessarily have to be tax incentives. I think a lot of times it just has to be, getting them the zoning to be able to go into it. I think that ends up being a big hurdle in doing that. Based off the current general plan, as you've seen it, do you feel like the general plan's set up in a way to, bring development, not just residential, but bring development into the area to where it could support more business growth?
Yeah, I think the general plan is actually pretty well thought out.
Yeah.
It may need to be a little freshened up since we've had so much growth since we've last looked at it. But I know there's a lot of effort goes into those general plans. I remember when this last one was done, a lot of public input and what does the citizens want?
Yeah.
And so I think we need to follow that. And I think the general plan does allow for some good industries to come in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think it's done a really good job. In my own personal opinion, sometimes I don't think it looks far enough down the road. And so there's some difficulty with the general plan, because you're like, oh, we're going to project out, 20 years, but then what happens in that 20 years? Sometimes you have 5 to 10 years, like we just went through, where it's insane growth. And then you have a whole, slog of nothing happens. And then there's a lot of changes that happen in the middle. 'Cause it's like, well, nobody's using this zoning and somebody wants to go build houses there. And so now we're going to change that plan, because it's 10 years ago that we set this setup up. So it's an interesting balance on trying to project out long-term versus short-term. Do you think it's ever acceptable for local government to prioritize economic growth over environmental protection? Thinking about open space, the tortoise reserve, obviously we have a requirement to protect the tortoises, but other environmental elements too, whether it's water or whether it's air pollution. I would even say environmentally, a traffic being an environmental impact that I think doesn't always get collectively put into it. But do you think it's acceptable for the local government to prioritize that economic development over that environmental protection?
I'd hate to say a yes or no totally on that, because there may be situations where, okay, this individual.
Can you think of one?
I can think of like a data center. Okay, you have a data center come in. That's going to be a huge power load. I've talked power.
Yeah.
Our system may not be able to support that, and trying to get the resource, the power generation to that would be very difficult. That would cause a lot of upgrading the power lines, transmission lines, coming through the turtle habitat with more power lines. And what does it provide Hurricane?
Yeah.
Basically 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah.
And so it just would not be a good sacrifice of the environment for that type of economic
business
development. Yeah. Just wouldn't work for us.
Yeah. So, but in smaller situations, you could see where, hey, this economic development is important to the community, that we would environmental protection, whether it's I'll pull up Jellystone. I'll bring up Jellystone.
Okay.
Jellystone being it's a tourist attraction. There's elements that provide for the local community, but I would say it's expensive. So I don't think the local community is necessarily using it as much as the tourism is. But then it's a drain on water, or golf courses being another example. Do you think? How do you weigh those types of economic development, creation over some of those environmental things?
So I was not involved with the Jellystone at all. I don't know how much water they actually use.
Yeah,
it's a park, and one of those I think is probably fine. We probably would not want to approve multiple parks like that. The same thing with golf courses. We have a lot of golf courses, and they use a lot of water, and probably not something we want to keep producing or making is more golf courses. We need to secure that water and use it for residential as best we can.
Yeah. Are you, because I know there's some debate as to whether we have enough water or we don't have enough water. It's very interesting to hear different areas, even within politics, but then even in the private industry, the citizens, the belief about water. It's a conflicting. I mean, you could pull up articles that are like, we got plenty of water, and then some will say, no, we're running out of water and we're in this drought and all these things. What's your take on it?
So when I was growing up here in St. George, I think we had one water tank, and Gunlock was not built, Sand Hollow was not built, Quail Lake was not built. So as the need has risen, so has the infrastructure to bring the water and keep the water. And the county does an excellent job in forecasting and looking at the water and developing the water. And so does Hurricane City. I know the water director there, and he does a great job in making sure Hurricane's water is protected and developed. Eventually, that's going to get to where we don't have it anymore. I mean, there's not an unlimited supply of culinary water, water that we can use. So I know there's a lot of plans in the future for taking secondary water and cleaning it up enough to make it culinary. I mean, we use a lot of water per person in this county, and eventually we're going to run out. I mean, it's when that time is, I don't know, but it's something we need to look at every development. Is there water enough for this development?
Do you think somebody can project out and say, hey, this is our cap. Like we can't keep going after this at this point, we can no longer do it. Do you think there's a scenario where we have to say, hey, we can't provide water to this building or that building any longer? There's going to be a time where building stops, almost like an island. Like I think of Hawaii, like they have water issues. That it rains there all the time, but they only have so much land. They hit the ocean, and that's just what they get. And we're kind of an island in the desert. Do you feel like we might get to that point?
Yeah, I think we will get to that point. I was at a city council meeting here just recently, and they threw out a number that the county had given them, the Washington County Water Conservancy District had given them how many connections Hurricane basically has available. And it seemed to me like it was right around 20,000, but I can't remember. I don't know if that's 100% correct or not, but there is a number out there that, okay, this is how much water we have developed that can be allocated to Hurricane.
Yeah, let's hope you're not on the city council at that point.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to deal with that when we get to that point. I think it can be challenging. But then I also think as an innovative, pioneering people that has settled this area and that continues, we attract that type of human into Southern Utah, for all the amazing elements that it would take to attract people in like that. We have an innovative spirit, and so being able to innovate our way out of it and keep rolling, I'm actually pretty optimistic that we might figure out some of those ways to keep running.
So can I talk one more thing about that?
Yeah.
So even down my
street,
say
whatever you want, man.
In Hurricane, so I have an acre, and I flood irrigate my orchard.
Oh, nice.
So one thing they're doing is putting the flood irrigation into pressurized irrigation, which will save a lot of water.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing projects like that all the time, just taking care of the water that we do have. And I have to say, over all the droughts we've had over 30 years, I've always got my water.
Yeah.
So it may be stretched out a few extra days, but I always get a full stream of water.
Yeah.
So, what little water we have is very well maintained and watched over very carefully.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got to hand it to the Water Conservancy District and all the water people, what they've done. I mean, we live in a desert and we still have water. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Do you, are you in favor of like the water meters and the things like that some of the initiatives from the state coming in, trying to control that water? I know they've recently done, I can't remember what the technical name is, but they've basically gone in, and this happened. One of my clients, he has a property in Virgin that has water rights, and they're basically going out and saying, hey, we're going to do an assessment as who's using the water and how much water are they using. Are you in favor of those types of measures?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you have a water right, I think you should have that water right. If you're not using it 100%, I think you should still be able to keep that water right.
Yeah.
I mean, the state could come in and assess all they want and then offer to buy it from you, or, say you're not using it, but I don't think they should come in there and force you to sell your water because you're not using your full allotment. Full
and maybe
share.
maybe you know this. I can't remember. I thought I heard that they had shifted this policy, because it used to be if you don't use it, you lose it. Is that right? And then I think there's been some movement over the last couple legislative sessions for farmers to where if they were to not use all of the water that they have, they don't lose it. They don't have that risk of losing it. Is that right? Did I understand that right?
I don't know
Not
about
sure.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and being in favor of that, I feel like it could be a political situation at the state level, and having elected officials locally to be able to voice those concerns, I think is going to be important, because I think water, with data centers and water usage, as we continue to grow as a state and we continue to be in this drought, there might be more and more conversations as to how much regulation the state does impose on us, and I think that'll impact us a lot.
Yeah, there's going to be fights for water, and there always have been. Like they say, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over.
Yeah, that's right. So. That's right. That's a good one. What's your? I think the last real question that I have has been around term limits and state term limits, city term limits, federal term limits. I'd like to get anybody who's running for office their perspective on term limits and what they feel like. But before we kind of dive into that, I kind of want to know from your perspective, what are the things that you want to see change in the city of Hurricane, and what do you want to bring to the table for the community?
So I don't know that I have a big change. My platform is not coming in for change. Mm-hmm. It's basically coming in. I want to be able to use my expertise in leadership to fill that open seat, mm-hmm. and help make the right decisions for Hurricane City. Mm-hmm. I'm not there to come in there and bulldoze everything over.
Mm-hmm. So do you, not necessarily change, but what would you like to see? Not to change directions, but what would you like to implement? Is there something that you'd like to see happen? An initiative, something that you're passionate about, that you're like, hey man, I think this is really important. It might not be getting the attention that it might deserve, and it might be power. That might be what it is, infrastructure and things like that, or maybe it's building up a better future in the police force, or whether it's a traffic thing where you're like, hey, I think we could reevaluate how we've done some of these things in the past. So not necessarily bulldoze anything, but what if you were to paint your innovative future of Hurricane, what would you like to see?
So one of my things is where we have a planning commission, mm-hmm. and it's a very broad base of expertise, mm-hmm. and backgrounds. The planning commission will talk about issues, especially controversial. They'll spend hours and hours and hours looking at all angles of an issue, and then they'll make a recommendation to the city council. I've seen the city council time and time again, just basically because there's a developer or somebody just puts pressure on them, that they go against the planning commission's recommendation, mm-hmm. and vote the other way. Mm-hmm. And that has always bothered me. I've seen it done time and time again. Mm-hmm. And as a city councilman, I've known city councilmen who come in totally unprepared. Mm-hmm. I've known that the ones that come in knows every aspect of the item. In fact, they'll be sitting in my office, and I'll have to explain to them in detail about my issues, that I have on a city council. And oftentimes that city council person will vote against an item because, mm-hmm. they're fully informed. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to come in fully informed. I have the time. I'm semi-retired to be able to put my all into every issue. And that's one of the big things I want to be able to do.
No, I appreciate that, because I've witnessed the same thing in multiple different cities, and you could tell. I mean, if you watch them, you could tell who's ready and who's prepared and who's done their research and who hasn't. And a lot of times it's just from the questions that they ask. Sometimes I'm like, did you even read the packet before the meeting started. It's just,
Correct.
it's very
Yeah.
interesting. So
Yes.
I see that happen a lot. So I appreciate that that's something that you'd want to focus on. So maybe that last question just about term limits and things like that. And that might go into the conversation we just had, is that sometimes the term limits require that somebody great ends up getting, their terms up, and they might be really informed, and it opens the door for somebody to be less active and capable of doing it. So it can be an issue. But what's your opinion on it?
So as a broad, I'd say I'm against term limits overall. To me, the election is the term limit.
Yeah.
The electorate speaks. If they want them out of there, get them out of there. You do lose a lot of institutional knowledge when you have somebody who's been in there for 2 or 3 terms. And if they were just a step away because of a term limit, you have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
As a power supervisor, I had to retrain my city council members all the time because they need to make informed decisions, and they're starting from zero. And so I have to get them up to speed, and it takes a lot of time. So overall, I'd say I'm against term limits. Not that there's, it'd be great to get some people out because of a term limit. I mean, but I think overall, you're better off just having the electorate make that decision.
Yeah. So at the city and at the state and federal level, you feel the same?
All the way up. All the way up.
All the way up?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. I just want people to be thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for term limits. Not that I have to express my opinion about it fully, but I think there's an opportunity to, at a certain point, there's this comfortability ability, and then incumbents win 80% of the time. And so when you think of that, the odds, right, to whether they might be doing a good job, but they might not be doing a great job, but the electorate isn't paying attention enough to really know, and they have name recognition, and they go with, well, that person hasn't done anything that I've noticed that's bad, so we're just going to keep them in. And I think that opens the door for not major corruption, but even the minor level corruption that ultimately erodes what I think the seat is supposed to do, and what the holding people's feet to the fire with just a vote. Unfortunately, we just don't get the vote out very much. The vote just, I think in the city of St. George, out of 37,000 possible voters, only 13,000 voted in the last election. And that's not enough to me. In my mind, that's not enough people to really hold even the local city council people accountable to it. But at the same time, I get your point. And being not to say that you're an insider, but somebody that's been working inside the city in its operational capacity, I can see how that's a difficult thing to see city council people come and go, and how difficult it is to get them up to speed. And I don't have the experience in that to know, so I can see how that's a challenge.
To your point, one of the reasons I'm running is because there was an open seat.
Yeah.
And so, your point is extremely valid. I mean, that is the downside of not having term limits, is you can have people in there complacent, not doing their job, and name recognition gets them reelected.
Yeah.
So, there is a two side to that story.
Yeah. It's a tough one to think about.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find out more information about you?
Okay. I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm also on the city website.
Okay.
And on the 435 podcast.
And 435 podcast. That's right. VoteSTG.com. You can go there and find all the candidates listed there. Primaries are right around the corner.
Oh yeah, they're coming up.
Yep, next Tuesday. Ballots are due. Everybody should have ballots in their mail already. This will be the last year that you get ballots automatically. You're gonna have to opt in to get a ballot in the mail after this year, but make sure you drop them off. Don't mail them in. Go drop them off at the where in Hurricane can they drop them off at?
You do the city office and at the city library.
At the library, the city office, and we hope you guys enjoy this episode. Thanks for coming on, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
You bet.
Good luck. We'll see you out there, guys. Thanks for listening in. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Make sure you're following us on all the social media websites. We love your support. We love the dialogue. We want to continue that going.
Find us at realestate435.com. We'd love to help you find a house here in town or help you get wherever you're going.